The 2024 season is over and we have literally 0 days of a pause as there is the post-season testing in Abu Dhabi that is conducted by the teams to test the tyres and to see how the drivers adapt to their new homes. One of the most notable ones is Carlos Sainz and his Williams outing that is so far looking great both on and off the track with the financial backing he's brought to the Grove-based squad, but a massive focus is also being put on Tsunoda's first test with Red Bull as well. With so much anticipation for the second seat in Red Bull, can the Japanese driver prove that he's the next Verstappen teammate, or will he have to accept yet another season with Racing Bulls? The post-season test is well underway and the drivers are testing out the cars that they will be driving in the next couple of years, and as you already know, there have been some major shakeups on the grid, including Sainz to Williams, Hülkenberg to Sauber, Ocon to Haas, as well as many rookies being introduced to the grid like Doan, Behrman, Antonelli, Bortoleto and the semi-rookie in Lawson. Be that as it may, the season is going to give us a lot of excitement, but for that to happen, we'd need to see the teams make strong progress in this post-season test and see where their cars are headed for the upcoming campaign. And such has been made by Carlos Sainz, who posted very solid times throughout his first Williams testing. According to a report from Motorsport, the best time from Sainz out of 60 laps was 1:24.435, which is quite solid considering the fact that he's driving one of the slowest cars on the grid right now. Of course, to compare times now would be absurd because every car drives in a different mode with different tyres and different fuel loads. So to see Sainz being ahead of Leclerc in the standings doesn't automatically mean that he found some magical form in the new team. But it is an indicator that Williams might fight for points much more frequently than they have been right now. And of course, the backing of Santander, the Spanish bank that broke the partnership with Ferrari after 18 years of successful collaboration, will provide Williams with a lot of funds that they will be able to capitalise on in their wind tunnel. And they'll be much needed given the fact that their drivers have crashed the car so many times in 2023 that the team had to sacrifice the 2025 development as well. Albon will be put under a great test because we've seen with Sargent that he didn't have any problems whatsoever, but when Colapinto came knocking on the door, the Thai driver felt the pressure immediately. The situation with Sainz is going to be even more extreme because we're talking about a driver who's won 4 races in his career as a Ferrari driver and has been a regular podium contender. So the enthusiasm that Wolff had for Sainz was not hollow, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, there are other drivers who we're going to pay very close attention to, such as Yuki Tsunoda and his Red Bull outing. This is probably the most important chance that the Japanese driver will receive as part of the Red Bull camp because his connections with Honda will always put him in a situation where he won't be the #1 choice for that seat. The upper hand currently lies with Lawson, and with the energy that the current Racing Bulls driver is giving on the grid, you could say that maybe he's been promised something that we don't know. However, with the tyre test that Ricciardo did back in Silverstone, he's been able to prove that he still has it to race in Formula 1. So believe me when I say that Red Bull will value Tsunoda's lap times in the RB20 very highly if they are on par with Verstappen, similar to how Ricciardo's times were compared earlier in 2024 in Silverstone with the Dutchman or the top teams on the grid. Then Yuki will seriously have a chance to be part of the Austrian team from 2025 onwards. So believe me when I say that Red Bull will value Tsunoda's lap times in the RB20 highly, and if they are on par with Verstappen, similar to how Ricciardo's times were compared earlier in 2024 in Silverstone with the Dutchman or the top teams on the grid, then Yuki will seriously have a chance to be part of the Austrian team from 2025 onwards. It's safe to assume that these times will be compared to the ones of the Racing Bulls drivers who are currently doing the testing, such as Lawson and Iwasa, because if the difference isn't too big, then Lawson might be given an interesting chance to prove himself in Red Bull, even though many believe that the lack of experience might burn out the young Kiwi driver in the pursuit of more success. A lot will depend on how these two will perform on the Yas Marina circuit, but be that as it may, the situation is all but well for Perez, who has admitted for the first time in his career that his seat is under threat and that the meeting that they will have with the shareholders will determine whether he and Red Bull have a future together. And a massive flaw in the post-season testing is the fact that we are not seeing Lewis Hamilton in red. And even though we knew it wouldn't happen because of all the duties that Mercedes planned for the 7-time world champion, it still does hurt to not see him drive and tame the Ferrari machinery as early as possible. This has been admitted by Hamilton himself, but Vasseur has been adamant that the Brit won't need much time in the process of acclimatisation to the car, which gives us a lot of hope that until the first race in Australia in March, Hamilton will have more than enough time to gel with the car. When talking about missing the test in Abu Dhabi with Ferrari due to the Mercedes duties, Hamilton said, "I know Vasseur wanted it to happen. For me, I was in two minds. Driving the red car for the first time in Abu Dhabi does not excite me. In the perfect world, you get to drive it and not be seen and do the first rollout next year. When I did raise it with Toto, they had all these plans that I've got to go and see some of the sponsors and say their farewells. I don't think it was ever going to be allowed, even if I'd asked for it, but I'm contracted with the team until December 31st, and that is totally fine. It doesn't bother me because I wasn't going to do the test. I told Fred that's not what I want to do. Am I missing out on something? For sure. It definitely delays the process and makes the start of the year harder, but we'll do our best to recover from it." To make things harder, the first outing from Hamilton will be in a car that was driven back in 2022 at the F1 75. But if there is a driver out there who can recover from all of these hurdles, it's definitely Lewis. If we are to look at Mercedes though, the situation isn't perfect there because they haven't been able to test the car with the 2025 rookie Antonelli due to some health problems that the young Italian is missing. Kimi Antonelli is the star we are missing to see in the postseason testing because of his illness, and he's been replaced by the former F2 champion Frederik Vesti. Frederik has received a lot of positive words from Wolff, but to say he is a candidate for an F1 seat is definitely at the moment a bit of a far-fetched scenario. However, if he proves his strengths here in Abu Dhabi, he might have a shot in a Mercedes-linked team. Let's not forget that Alpine is such a team from 2025 onwards, and Mercedes always tends to promote their young academy drivers to their customer teams, even though the mission of Vesti to race in F1 will be massively hindered by the fact that Paul Aron, a Formula 2 driver, has been signed to Alpine's academy after being part of Mercedes' family, which goes to show that if they're going to promote, it's going to be from their inner circles. Make no mistake, Antonelli will feel a lot of pressure on his shoulders because he will be part of one of the most competitive teams on the grid with practically zero F1 experience apart from a couple of testing sessions. Let's not forget how Monza ended up for him, and he goes against Russell, who is a race winner and practically the leader of the team until proven otherwise. It's going to be interesting to see how the situation on the top will unfold, but that is not the only thing that we're going to be paying attention to. The midfield battle is going to get pretty packed as well. For starters, we're going to have an accommodation process for Ocon and Haas, with the Frenchman being let go earlier from Alpine without his agreement, and that can only further fuel the fire that he has in himself to prove that Haas can fight for much more than positions below P5. Sauber will be on a mission to see whether or not the late season surge that happened from Qatar onwards can be translated in 2025, and with a brand new duo of Bortoleto and Hülkenberg, the team will strive to score as many points as possible before they transition to Audi and a whole new environment with the engines and the car. Hülkenberg did his magic back in Haas and has been the main points contributor to the team's amazing P7 result in the Constructors' Championship in 2024, but whether or not he can replicate that with the Swiss-German squad, time will tell. With all this in mind, what do you think about the 2024 post-season testing, and who do you think will benefit the most from it? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're interested in Hamilton's statement about his future in Ferrari from 2025 onwards, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.